Alright, g'day Vets crew. Thought I'd do this a bit differently. We'll throw a lap straight out of the box with the old data. Look at the old, it's about the same as my heart rate at the moment. Car 1, Wayne being Wayne. What did he do? A 6 point something. Let's have a look at his time. Wayne, such a show off. 6.455, not too shabby, Mr. Walker. Anyway, let's just do a lap. I haven't actually driven a lap yet on this dock, so we'll, I guess, see how it feels. Obviously, round 1, Bathurst. How good? I'm pretty gutted not racing. Got a work commitment, but that's like, oh, dock feels quite nice, even though it's an outlap. They always feel good on an outlap, don't they? But plenty of feel on the front. Yeah, look, obviously Bathurst round 1. You'd say it's a good drop round track. But key here, key to this track is roll time. So not rushing the corner, not rushing the middle of the corner, really focusing on a nice smooth entry. And you'll note there's quite a bit of roll time, so no brake, no throttle, just relying on the car to rotate. That's the biggest thing at this track. Obviously, you've got to maximise your lines, maximise the track width where you can. Use every bit of road you can, but you can't hustle the car like you could the old Gen 2 with all the downforce. So you've really got to be patient. You've got to be calm. And really think about, really think about your entries and your mid corner, so that you can nail your exits, which is massively critical. So anyway, standard setup, 6 pedal, 64.3 on the bias. Let's see what this looks like for a lap of Mount Panorama, shall we? Not too bad through there. Probably broke a little early, turned in a bit late. You really want to make sure you get the weight on the nose of the car when you stand on the pedal up here. A little bit of locking in the front, but that's not too bad. Nice and tight on the curb. Float it out to the outside. I grabbed 4th there, only because I don't like abusing the engine. Nice and slow here, just nice smooth, get it up the hill. Really nice balanced setup over the top, a little bit understeer on exit. It's not too bad. Again, nice roll time, nice and smooth. It's quite good off the curb there, which is good. Nice and tight. Let's flick it back here nicely. Get it in on the curb. That's not what you want on the exit, but that's okay, that happens. So far, pretty tidy lap. Good one to go back and watch after this and see where the goods and the bads were. It's always good to have some bad stuff, not just a perfect lap to review. A little bit early on the brakes there, that's okay. And a little bit early on the brakes there as well, that's okay as well. Good exit. That's a pretty tidy lap. What's that? That's 6.5. There you go. First lap on the dock. It's quite nice. Couple of little mistakes there. What's the time gap? It's a couple of tenths there to Wayne, but that's easy to find. So yeah, definitely a couple of little wobbles. But yeah, nothing nothing too untoward. So let's have a bit of a look at the lap and see what we've done well, and certainly what we could do better, because that's ultimately what it's about. Hate getting this camera right. I do apologise. Sorry, I'll mute that.
That's it.
I'll mute that.
No one listens when you complain.
We listen. We're all listening. I don't know why that's not muting. Yeah, it's muted. There we go. Okay. Cool. All right, let's have a look at the lap. So yeah, first lap, like I said, on the dock. Feels quite nice. I'm not happy with this camera angle. I do apologise, gents. Chase, let's do this. And let's bring this back here. There we go. That's a bit nicer, isn't it? All right. So yeah, fairly smooth overall lap. Pretty happy with it. Like I said, really underdrove turn 1. Had a bit of locking into turn 2. Didn't quite commit very well at the cutting. But the rest of the lap was fairly tidy. So there's definitely a low, what was that lap? It was a 206. There's definitely a low 206 in it. So that's fine. That's just repetition lap time. That's easy enough. So up into here, you want to be braking around the 1 board. Look, you can push, like I said, I probably broke a little bit early here. So you can push to this telegraph pole if you've got certain settings turned on. You can't see them if there's certain things not turned on. But around the 100 board is where you want to be. And it's a pretty decent brake application. I hate this thing at the moment. Sort of pretty decent, around that, I don't know, 70-odd%, 70-80%. You can see it's very consistent. The reason I say I broke a little bit early is you can see as I come off on the trail brake here, I get a little bit choppy on it, just there. But overall, pretty smooth. See, I grab a little bit more there because I've just turned in a bit wide, and I pick up the throttle and away you go. So there's not much in that, but just that little bit there, a little bit of width, that's enough there just to put you a bit wide, and you can't quite get back on the throttle as nicely as you want. So definitely, like I said, 100 board, nice and smooth. Get the car rotated in. Like I said, I was just a smidge late on the turn in. Not much, but just a little bit. And pick up that throttle nice and early. Once you get the car rotated in, you feel like it's there. You can get on the throttle and just wait until it sits up on top of the curb and then grab it. You don't want to be jumping on the throttle too aggressively here, because all you're going to do is just light the rears up. You come out of that cambered section of this corner up onto a crest. If you've got too much throttle on over that crest, it'll just snap the rear. But like I said, dock, it's 1 lap in. The dock's probably got a little bit of understeer mid to exit, which is not a bad thing. So you're not going to have that snap. If it is snapping, it's just your throttle application. So think about how you're getting off the corner. So you can see up on the curb, bang, full throttle. Make sure you hit your shift points. I can't stress that enough. There's a lot of drivers that hit the limiter, and I don't think they realise they're hitting the limiter. Really focus on hitting your shift points. Every time you hit the limiter is half a tenth, 100th, whatever it is. 6 gear changes or 4 gear changes down a straight each time. There's half a tenth. So really focus on making sure you shift before you hit that limiter. Don't wait for the lights to flash in your dash. Yep, poet. Fucking hit them when the lights go red. Don't hit them when they start flashing, because you guarantee you're going to grab that limiter. So nice and smooth all the way up through the gears. All right, so down here, basically at the black wall is a break point for me. And again, this is all onboard referencing. So, wiper, black wall. So whenever I'm referring to a break point, that's effectively what I'm talking about. Is I'm using the wiper as a bit of a reference. So it saves me going back and forth on the camera. But you can see initially here, I hit the pedal quite hard, but I came out of it a little bit too much. And you can just see a little bit of, I've actually locked a bit of front on, actually I've locked both fronts slightly. And I've actually carried a bit of throttle in here. So yeah, I don't know why I did that. What a sped. So we'll slow this right down. Can I go slower? I can go slower. The data looks weird when you slow it right down, FYI. But you can just see, I carried a little bit of throttle through that whole section. And then that has meant I've locked the fronts because I'm just driving the car on a bit. So brake point was pretty good. Again, don't worry about the weird squiggly bits. It's just as you slow the data down, it gets squiggly. Yeah, so that's all. I've made a bit of an error there. Just pinched the front, but just cleared the pedal a little bit. Just ABS'd it, got it back. I was pretty happy with it. But you can see here, you get the car in. As soon as it's in on that curb, you've got to turn it in fairly early. Okay, so you don't wait too long to turn it in here because it just won't get into the apex. So you want to get it in early and get it in as tight as you can on the trail to the curb. Again, probably a couple hundred mil off where I'd like to be, but as you can see, just there, it's not too bad. It's pretty close. But you can get back in the throttle nice and early once you get the car sucked in. So just let the car roll in on the trail brake nicely, pick up the throttle, and then really start increasing that throttle to the point where you can get the steering wheel fairly straight on the exit here and just let the car slide out of the corner. Be much better. So get it right out to the curb. Obviously, you don't want to get too much wider than that because you will almost push the wrong button there. You will catch the wall. But yeah, just got to make sure you catch that curb right when you're on it. But you can see it's full throttle. Full throttle from there. So the car's loaded up. I think some people use second gear through there. I think you're just slowing the car down too much in second. Up the hill. So get the car back across to the right as soon as you can. Don't dawdle. Don't dick around up the hill and slowly meander over. Get the car over and get it landed, get it planted where you want it to be. Now, I'll go to fourth gear here. It all depends on the gear ratio. But yeah, fourth gear definitely is my preference. I do find it's just a little bit nicer than bouncing it on the rev limiter. And as soon as you come off the throttle, when you're on the rev limiter, there's a lot of engine braking immediately. So if you're going to use third, you'd effectively carry the throttle a lot further into the corner because you'd be carrying a lot more momentum because obviously the engine braking is going to be greater. So I'll go to fourth and just come out a bit earlier. I just find it calms the car down just a little bit. So nice and smooth in, close to that first wall. Obviously you don't want to get any closer than that. But yeah, nice and close to that first wall. Float the car out to the white, just inside of the white line. Okay, you don't want to be out here, pointless. That's really the limit. Anything past that white line, there's no grip. Now, you want to float and be as smooth as you can through this bit. So you can see this is what I talk about roll. So I've got no brake, no throttle, no nothing. I've just got the car rolling through the corner nicely, waiting for it to come back into the apex. And as soon as I'm comfortable with it getting back into the apex, which is there, okay, cool, I can pick up the throttle. All right. If you're trying to drive it in hard and trail brake and throttle early and everything else, it's just a shit show. Just be really smooth and calm and just focus on steering lock. Don't focus on anything other than just letting the car roll. Don't oversteer. What I mean is don't go hooking on the thing and pitching it in as hard as you can on the steering wheel. Just turn the car in. You can see there's not a huge amount of, there's a bit of lock there, but it's not crazy amounts of lock. The car's rolling. It's happy. And then once I know that it's in there, I can get on the throttle. Now, again, on the exit out of here is just be patient. See, it's patient. Bang, I can grab it now. All right. It's that same thing as turn one. It comes out of a hollow up into a little bit of a lull where the car gets light. If you're too aggressive on the throttle, you're just going to fry the tires. Now, these cars are all about tire management. Simple as that. So if you can look after the tire, then you're going to be in a better position. But you can just see that gradient change. It's uphill. Bang, right there. You can even see the car wants to start to rotate, and I'm only at 70, 65, 70% throttle. So really nice and calm up out of here. Once the car's over that little crest and you're happy you can get steering wheel straight, everything straight, bang, jump on the throttle. Some people might short shift here to third. I find just carrying second's a bit nicer. I haven't really tried third though. Just a little bit of a lift over the bump. To be honest with you, in qualifying, probably just rag it and hope for the best. There's a little bit of time in it. But yeah, definitely just a nice little lift over the crest. Once the car's settled around, I'll get back to full throttle, obviously up into third gear. And then here's just balancing the throttle. No brake, I'm a touch wide of the apex there, so I consider the apex the red line here. I want to be a little bit tighter and sort of come off over the grate here. But, it's not awful where it is. I didn't have to get in and out of the throttle too much. Nice progressive throttle. You can see data disappears. It's really annoying. You can see it's really annoying, actually. So I get on the throttle a little bit there and then back out of it again. And that's purely that little bit of throttle is enough for me to miss that apex to where I want the car to be by a couple 100 mil. Pick up that little bit of throttle more than you should and it'll just push. That's how sensitive the car can be. So nice and smooth, be smart, get the car back in and rotate it. And once it gets up over the crest, start feeding the, you can see there, steering wheel's pretty straight. I will come back a little bit right hand down. But once the steering wheel's straight, you can just start feeding that throttle in harder and harder. Smidge of right hand down, but that was just to make sure I don't hit the wall. So you can see you're kind of straight from there, even though the car's still turning right. So it really is a delicate act of balancing the throttle through here. Up over the hill, like I said, I did come back a little bit more to the right. It was a bit tight. That's the way it should be at Bathurst. Here, I try and stay full throttle, but I do balance the throttle a fair bit. So sort of 90% back to full throttle once I'm comfortable. And that's just that little transition there. There's a few little bumps. I just don't want to fry the rear tyre and hurt. I want to heat the rear tyre up into this next section because if the rear's hot, then you're just going to have slippy slides all the way through here. So nice and balanced. Again, no brake. You should just be rolling out of the throttle nicely down the hill. Point the car out towards the grate and flick the car back in. And again, straight back on the throttle. So as soon as you feel that car load up, and this is, again, another section of roll out of the throttle early and let the car flow. Don't stay hard on the throttle and then have to brake the car in here to get it to turn. You just kill your momentum. It's all about momentum down this section and out of it. So no brake, maintains momentum, right? You can roll out of the throttle, it'll do its job. It'll do its job. Just let it trust it. It gets out to the wall. Like I said, you can see it's just consistent steering lock. So if you look at the steering wheel, once I'm happy where the car is, we'll just play it through in slow-mo. Once I'm happy, I'm pointing at the Etihad sign. I put the steering lock into it. It doesn't change a lot. That's where it is. I'm happy with it. I'm rolling the car. And then as the car starts to pitch in, I can use the throttle to steer it. So you're not chopping and changing. You're not on and off the throttle and all the rest of the crap. Nice and smooth. And you can just see that consistent 65 odd percent, 60% throttle all the way through. The car wants to go out to the wall, happy with that, and bang, you're back into full throttle. So again, it's another section that you just got to be patient with the throttle all the way through. Here's another bit. I didn't maximize here either, which is fine. But you get to the start of the curb, bang, you pitch the car in. And again, no brake, out of the throttle. This is all roll. So no braking, no throttle, pitch the car in. So a little bit of brake there, and that's what I mean by I just didn't quite maximize it, but then I start picking up the throttle as soon as I can. So once the car comes over, I grab a bit of brake to put weight back on the nose and then start feeding the throttle into it. Now, again, a couple 100 mil. Probably just want to be a little bit tighter if you can. But get back in that throttle as hard as you can, as early as you can, without this curb, and it's only one lap into using this dock, but the dock actually rode this curb quite nice. My dock is a little bit more aggressive over the top, and you've got to be a little bit gentle with the throttle over this little curb. This actually rode it quite well. You can see I'm back to full throttle pretty confidently. So yeah, tip of the hat, and you can see it. Even when it comes off the curb there, it just settles. It doesn't want to move around. So that's really good. But make sure you get yourself back. So, excuse me, up on the curb, bang, full throttle, happy days, and get yourself back over to the left as soon as you can. Okay, you don't want to enter here mid-track. You want to be as far over to the wall as you can. I think I might get to the white line here. Ideally, you're probably a little bit further. So yeah, just inside of the white line. So again, braking, but not a huge brake application. This is just about settling the car. So you can see it's like what, 20%? So it's about settling the car, getting that first downshift done, and letting the engine do some braking first. That's the point of this section of track, the initial part. What happens in the next two phases starts here. So you're either going to have a gorgeous smooth run, or you're going to be hanging on to the thing hoping for the best. So out of the throttle early, just a nice light trail brake, down a gear to do some engine braking, and you get the car in pretty hard. Now again, I'm a touch wider than where I want to be, but you've got to pitch the car in pretty hard on this wall. The tighter you can get it here, not up here, you want it here. The tighter you can have it here, the more it opens up this next section, right? So you can see I'm just a touch wide, not much. As the car lands in this section, you can see straight away back into the brake. So about 40–50% at peak. Pretty much around 50%. I reckon if you look at the data, it'd be pretty close to it. So you want to get it in, down another gear. As soon as you start coming back to the curb, right off the brake. Right, let the engine do the braking, just focus on the steering. If you've got too much brake over this curb, you'll lock the front and you'll either be on the inside wall or you'll be running wide through this whole next sector and lose 6–7 tenths like that. So nice and smooth. You see really low percentage of brake. As it comes off the curb, bang, start feeding a little bit more brake into it. Okay. Carry the trail in, but you can get it right down. Now you want to get the car in nice and tight on the wall. So I run it very tight here. And I try to run it as tight as I can. A little bit of throttle through the middle of it. And then by the end of the curb, right there is where you want to be flicking it back in. Now I think I got this pretty freaking close. But yeah, you can just see just a nice little bit of trail through that sector just to keep the weight on the nose. Flick the car back in, and if you do it right, you should pretty much be, see, not quite right. Not quite right. It's very close. But yeah, you just want to be a little bit tight on the wall, but that's a safe bet. Tighter you are on the wall coming out of here, the better this opens up. Okay. But again, it's not too bad. Pretty happy with that. You can see the car's a bit light in the rear though, so starting to skate a little bit, which just slows you down getting on the throttle. And definitely get right over that curb. Use as much as you can out of there, and that'll just bode you well down here. The more you use, the sooner you can get back to full throttle and away you go. Down the hill, pretty straightforward stuff. Keep it nice and tight here. As soon as the car settles out of there, bang. I know track time of day and stuff can change, but shadow's a great thing. You know, shadow here, just from a muscle memory point of view, happens to be roughly where I start to brake. But again, it's not a huge brake application. It's just a settling brake application. So, you know, 50% hit, but then it's just a light trail, down a gear. Car has a bit of a slide, and then I shoot the car mid-track. Trail really nicely as best you can on the way in and get the car nice and tight on the wall. So you can pick up that throttle nice and early. You can see there's a lot of throttle in it. But as soon as the car, it's a bit like turn 1 and the cutting. As soon as the car starts to come out of here, it wants to get light in the rear. So you can see I grab a fair bit of throttle and then just lightly come back out of it on that transition, and it wasn't enough. It still had a slide. So there's another tenth gone at least down the straight. So you can see I started coming out of the throttle to let it settle, but then I got back into it a little bit too aggressively. So it's just that patience coming onto here that a little bit of patience will save you a tenth. A lack of patience will cost you more than a tenth. So that is what it is. But not too bad. Down the hill we go. Into here, this is fun. Again, once I get my head around the dock, you certainly you can push through here flat. But it really is about, I'm confident I had a lift here. It is about getting the car rotated in nice and early and shooting at the curb. If you try and drive it around the outside, so yeah, about 90% throttle, and use plenty of curb, really could have been, flat through there. The car was actually quite settled, and I came out, caught a track. So there was definitely an opportunity to go flat, which would have yielded, you know, potentially another half a tenth in time. Brake board, just past the 200. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. Just past the 200. I did. I think I said it live on board. I probably broke a bit early. You push it to the second cat sign there. A little bit further up the road. But again, it's about stopping the car, and it's about not hurting the tire. And it is easy to pinch a front here, especially with that change of direction. The thing you got, the challenge you got, if you don't turn it in nice enough here, you get a lot of understeer obviously through here, and then you're fighting the car from the left back to the right, which is going to absolutely lock brakes and cause issues and just destroy tires. So just make sure you really focus on getting the car in nice and square here, so that when you get on the brake, the car's square. And you can just see slowly just coming back out of the white line, then a second gear, and then rotate the car in. You can definitely use, I just clipped the apex there, you can definitely use a lot more curb, and that's what I mean by I've broken a bit early. You can carry more speed in, tip the car in a bit earlier, and jump a bit of this curb if you need to. So you can definitely maximise it, especially in qualifying. Here, just, yeah, nice transition. Obviously get up on the curb, but be nice and patient with the throttle again. And bang, back to full throttle. Get up over onto that curb and full send. Now down into here, brake zone is a bit of a tricky one because when they redid the graphics, they took away my brake marker. There used to be a little blotch in the road, and that was my brake marker. But look, effectively, excuse me, effectively, not that it's easy to look for, but you're looking for the second little cone, second last cone, I should say, would be roughly where your brake marker is. Sorry, I'll just lube up the throat. But that's roughly where I'm looking to brake. Again, I was a little bit early on the brakes here. Pretty big brake application, but you've got to be very careful of actually locking the rears here. You will lock the fronts late in the stop, but I find it very easy to lock the rears mid-stop if you're not careful. So definitely, definitely be a little bit mindful of that. But it is a pretty big brake application, and you want to get the car turned in reasonably early. Attack the curb a little bit, but you don't want to jump this curb because it does hurt your throttle application on exit. So definitely nice and smooth through here. Pick up the throttle, run it out to the curb, and get your little brrrr across the non-existent ripple strip that is on a smooth curb. But yeah, hard on the throttle. Out you go. And yeah, it was a whatever the hell that was, a 206.547. So that's first lap on the dock. J-Mac, nice dock. Yeah, bias is standard as you run it. Everything else. So yeah, definitely it's a patience game. Like I said, you don't want to be forcing the car here. It really is just about smooth exits, getting the car onto the curb correctly, getting the car off those curbs and down the straight. And yeah, that's the whole name of the game at Bathurst. And just spatial awareness is critical around here as well. I know there's a lot of talk in the feedback channel and general chat and all this sort of shit here and there about, you know, drivers fighting hard and this, that, and the other. This is a track where if you're someone who wants to defend like crazy and whatnot, it's your prerogative. Go for it. But you're costing yourself significant time at a track like this. It really is something where you've got to play it as well. You've got to play it as smart as you can. You know, why fight the battle now when you can win the war a bit later? So, you know, have a good think about that, because unfortunately, at a track like Bathurst, or even a street style track where there's just concrete walls everywhere, 9 times out of 10, fighting that hard fight is only going to yield in someone ending up in the fence. So have a think about it. You know, if you've got a bit of a time gap to the car behind you, and you know the car that is approaching you has got a little bit of pace, then use that pace to your advantage. use the slipstreams, use all those things so that you can go with that car. You know, fighting at Bathurst is freaking great in the last few laps, don't get me wrong, but it costs you seconds and seconds and seconds. So have a really good think about it. You know, be smart with your racecraft. Try not to turn your Mustang into an aeroplane over that curb. But yeah, just be smart and you'll be there at the end and you'll be in a position, hopefully fighting for a decent result in whatever split you are looking at this. But yeah, look, that's my little bit for Stewie. Yeah, have yourselves a good one, and yeah, good luck. I'll be watching, and hope you all have a good race.